My name is Amelia, and I am 30 years old. I live in a charming, albeit sometimes rainy, neighborhood of Seattle called Ballard. It's a place where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the salty tang of the Puget Sound, where independent bookstores thrive alongside trendy boutiques, and where the community feels both close-knit and welcoming. To the outside world, my life likely appears idyllic. I have a devoted husband, a cozy craftsman-style home filled with sunlight, and a fulfilling career as a graphic designer for a local nonprofit. Yet, a persistent undercurrent of dissatisfaction flows beneath the surface of my seemingly perfect existence. Each morning, I wake with a subtle ache in my chest, a quiet acknowledgement of a choice made not from love, but from a place of profound emotional vulnerability. 2 years ago, in the immediate aftermath of a painful breakup, I married Daniel. He is 35, a kind and thoughtful man with a warm smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. Daniel is the epitome of a good partner, reliable, considerate, and always ready with a comforting word. But the truth that weighs heavily on my heart is that I simply do not love him in the way a wife should love her husband. My decision to marry Daniel was not a joyful leap into a future filled with shared dreams and passionate affection. Instead, it was a reactive measure, a desperate attempt to escape the crushing weight of heartbreak left by my former fiancé, Julian. His unexpected departure had shattered my world, leaving me feeling adrift and desperately seeking an anchor. When Daniel, who had been a supportive friend throughout that difficult time, confessed his long-held feelings for me and proposed, I, in my fragile state, grasped at the offer of stability and comfort. I had convinced myself that marriage to someone so genuinely good would somehow heal the wounds Julian had inflicted. I entertained the hopeful notion that perhaps, over time, affection would deepen into love. But the seasons have turned twice since then, and while my appreciation for Daniel's unwavering kindness has grown, the deep, romantic love I once felt for Julian, and the kind of passionate connection I long for, has never materialized with Daniel. Now I find myself trapped in a cycle of guilt and quiet desperation, knowing that my lack of true love is subtly hurting the very man who strives so tirelessly to make me happy. Daniel's efforts are constant and heartfelt. Every Monday, he brings home a small bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite, their bright faces a cheerful contrast to the sometimes gray Seattle skies. He takes on the bulk of the household chores after a long day at his engineering firm, ensuring I can relax and unwind. He leaves sweet, often humorous notes tucked into my briefcase before I leave for work, little reminders that I am in his thoughts. He calls me my anchor, and often pulls me into a warm embrace, resting his chin on my head in a gesture of deep affection. Many women, I am sure, would feel incredibly lucky to have such a devoted and loving partner. But for me, each act of kindness serves as a poignant reminder of the emotional wall that stands between us, a barrier built of my own unresolved feelings. One drizzly Seattle evening, we were sitting by the fireplace in our living room, the crackling flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Daniel looked at me, his gaze soft and filled with a gentle tenderness that always stirred a pang of guilt within me. He reached for my hand, his touch warm and familiar, and said, Amelia, I know things haven't always been easy for you, especially after everything with Julian. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, always. I may not be the man you initially envisioned your life with, but I love you deeply, and I believe that what we have is real and can continue to grow. His words, spoken with such sincerity and unwavering hope, felt like a sharp knife twisting in my gut. A wave of shame washed over me. He was so open, so full of faith in a future that, in my heart, felt like a carefully constructed illusion. I felt like I was living a perpetual lie, going through the motions of a happy marriage, while my inner world remained a landscape of longing and regret. I smiled tightly, offering a weak squeeze of his hand, but inside, I felt a profound disconnect. My grandmother, a woman who had navigated the complexities of a long and sometimes challenging marriage, had once told me, Amelia, love isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's a slow burn, a quiet understanding that deepens over time. Marriage is about commitment, about choosing to love each other every day, through the good times and the bad. I had tried to embrace her wisdom, to cultivate patience and hope within myself, to believe that perhaps the quiet comfort Daniel offered could eventually blossom into something more profound. But with each passing day, I felt an increasing sense of alienation, like an actress playing a role she no longer understood, reciting lines that held no true meaning for her. One particularly rainy Friday evening, Daniel surprised me with a special homemade dinner. He had spent the afternoon meticulously preparing my favorite comfort food, creamy tomato soup with grilled cheese sandwiches cut into perfect triangles, a nostalgic meal that always evoked memories of my childhood. He had even lit a few unscented candles, their soft glow casting a warm and inviting ambiance over our small dining room, and put on a mellow acoustic playlist, the kind of music that usually soothed my often frazzled nerves after a busy week. As he presented the simple yet thoughtful meal, his eyes shining with a hopeful anticipation, he said, "This is for you, Amelia. Just a little something to show you how much I appreciate you." I looked at him, managed a small, somewhat strained smile, and murmured, "Thank you, Daniel. That's really sweet of you." But inside, a hollow ache persisted. The comforting aroma of the soup felt strangely oppressive. The gentle music seemed to amplify the silence between us, and the romantic gesture felt like another layer of guilt added to the already heavy burden I carried. I felt like an unwilling participant in a carefully staged scene, going through the motions of a loving couple, while my heart remained stubbornly detached. After dinner, as the rain continued to fall steadily outside, creating a soothing rhythm against the window panes, Daniel reached across the table and gently took my hand. His touch was tender, filled with a longing that mirrored my own, but for entirely different reasons. "Let's go for a walk," he suggested softly, his voice carrying a hint of hopeful anticipation. "Just a short one, maybe around Green Lake. The air might do us good." I hesitated for a moment, the thought of another forced display of togetherness feeling exhausting. But the familiar wave of guilt washed over me, and I found myself nodding in agreement. We walked in comfortable silence around the perimeter of the lake, the misty air clinging to our clothes. Daniel pointed out a family of ducks gliding across the water and chuckled at a dog chasing a ball, his simple joys a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. He reached for my hand again, his touch a silent question, and said, "This is nice, isn't it? Just being together." I offered a non-committal murmur in response, my heart feeling heavy and unresponsive. I felt like I was moving through a dream, a beautiful but ultimately unreal experience, a life that didn't quite belong to me. That night, back in our bedroom, Daniel presented me with a small, elegantly wrapped gift box. I opened it to find a delicate silver locket shaped like a forget-me-not flower. "This is for you," he said softly, his eyes filled with a gentle tenderness. "It's a reminder that you're always in my thoughts." I looked at the locket, its intricate details a testament to his thoughtfulness, and felt a fresh wave of guilt wash over me. Not because I was happy or touched in the way he hoped, but because I knew I didn't deserve his unwavering affection and these heartfelt gestures. "Thank you, Daniel," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, the words feeling inadequate and hollow. Later, after he had fallen asleep beside me, his breathing deep and even, I slipped out of bed and sat on the floor by the window, the city lights casting long shadows across the room. I didn't want to cry out loud, didn't want to disturb his peaceful slumber. I just sat there, lost in the labyrinth of my thoughts, replaying the memories of our relationship, searching for a moment when I had truly felt that spark of love for him, and finding only kindness and comfort in its place. I thought about the day we had met, at a volunteer event for a local animal shelter. I remembered his easy smile, his genuine compassion for the animals, and the quiet support he had offered me in the difficult months following Julian's abrupt departure. He had been a steady presence in my life, a reliable friend who had gradually become something more in my vulnerable state. But the deep, passionate love I craved, the kind that sets your soul on fire, had never ignited between us. I had married Daniel out of a sense of gratitude and a desperate longing for stability, my judgment clouded by the pain of heartbreak. I had mistakenly believed that marrying someone so inherently good would somehow fill the void Julian had left behind. But now, with the clarity that often comes in the quiet hours of the night, I understood the painful truth. Living without that essential spark of love, even in a marriage filled with kindness and comfort, was a profound and persistent form of loneliness. Upon our return to Seattle, the weight of my internal conflict grew increasingly unbearable. I started writing in a private journal, a place where I could finally give voice to the turbulent emotions that swirled within me. I didn't show these entries to anyone, the words a secret language between myself and the pages. One entry read, "Amelia, you are not a bad person, but you are living a life that isn't truly yours. You made a choice based on pain and a desperate need for healing, but now you must find the courage to face the truth, even if it means causing pain to someone you care about." Another entry echoed a similar sentiment. "Daniel is a good man, a truly wonderful soul, but he is not the missing piece of your heart. You cannot continue to give him only a fraction of yourself when he deserves your whole being." The act of writing became a form of therapy, a way to untangle the knot of my emotions and gain a clearer understanding of my own desires and the unfairness of the situation for both Daniel and myself. A few days later, my close friend Chloe called. Her voice, usually bright and energetic, held a note of gentle concern. "Amelia," she said, "you haven't seemed yourself lately. Is everything okay?" "I'm thinking about telling Daniel everything," I confessed, the words feeling both terrifying and like a long-held breath finally being released. "He deserves the truth, Chloe, no matter how much it hurts." "I think that's incredibly brave of you, Amelia," she replied, her simple words offering a much-needed sense of validation. That evening, I made a pot of chamomile tea, hoping its calming properties would somehow soothe my frayed nerves. I asked Daniel to join me in the living room, my hands trembling slightly as I poured the steaming liquid into our mugs. "Daniel," I began, my voice barely a whisper, "we need to talk." He looked at me, his expression a mixture of concern and quiet anticipation. "Okay," he said softly, his eyes fixed on mine. I took a deep breath, the warm tea doing little to calm the frantic beating of my heart. "Daniel," I continued, my voice gaining a little more strength, "I care about you deeply. You are a kind, generous, and wonderful man, but I don't love you, not in the way a wife should love her husband. I never did. I married you because I was hurting, because I thought it would help me move on from Julian. I hoped that love would grow between us over time, but it hasn't." Daniel remained quiet, his body still, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a look of understanding, mixed with a profound sadness, washed over his face. He said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, I think I knew, Amelia. Deep down, I've always sensed it, but I didn't want to believe it." Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. "I'm so incredibly sorry, Daniel," I choked out, my voice thick with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you." Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze unwavering. "I love you, Amelia," he said, his voice filled with a quiet resignation. "I truly do, but I can't be the only one holding on. If your heart isn't in this, then I can't keep you here." His words, spoken with such heartbreaking understanding and selflessness, shattered the last vestiges of my carefully constructed emotional wall. Even in the face of my painful confession, even as I admitted to a fundamental lack of love, He remained kind and compassionate. We sat in silence for a long time, the only sound the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. There was no anger, no blame, just a palpable wave of shared sadness that filled the room. That night, I slept in the spare bedroom. The unfamiliar surroundings, a stark reminder of the life that was slowly unraveling. I stared at the ceiling, the silence amplifying the turmoil within me, and whispered into the darkness. I told him. I finally told him the truth. I didn't know what the future held, didn't know if I would move out soon, or if we would have more difficult conversations. But for the first time in what felt like years, a small weight had lifted from my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe without a constant ache in my heart. The next few days were quiet and filled with a sense of unspoken understanding. Daniel and I continued to live in the same house, but a new kind of distance had settled between us. We spoke little, each of us navigating the raw emotions that my confession had unearthed. I remained in the spare bedroom, finding a strange sense of solace in the solitude, while Daniel stayed in our shared bedroom, the silence there undoubtedly echoing his own heartache and the quiet processing of a future he hadn't anticipated. In the mornings, Daniel continued his routine of making coffee, the familiar aroma still wafting through the house, a small reminder of the life we had built together. He still left a mug on the kitchen counter for me, a silent offering of comfort, or perhaps simply a continuation of habit. But the sweet notes were gone, replaced by a polite and somewhat strained silence. I continued to go to work, throwing myself into my design projects with a renewed sense of focus, a desperate attempt to find some semblance of normalcy amidst the emotional upheaval at home. I collaborated with colleagues, brainstormed new ideas, and meticulously crafted designs. But my mind often drifted back to Daniel, to the quiet sadness I had seen in his eyes, and to the uncertain future that stretched before us. One afternoon, Chloe came to visit me at my office, her presence a welcome distraction. She gave me a long, supportive hug, her embrace conveying a silent message of solidarity. "How are you holding up, Amelia?" she asked softly, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "I'm okay," I replied, offering a small, weary smile. "It's hard, definitely the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I feel a sense of relief, a sense of finally being honest." Chloe squeezed my hand. "That takes incredible courage, Amelia. So what's next?" I think, I think I need to find my own place," I said quietly, the words carrying a sense of finality. "It's time for me to truly step out on my own." That evening, I had another difficult conversation with Daniel, the words heavy with unspoken emotions. "Daniel," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "I think it would be best if I started looking for my own apartment." He didn't appear surprised, as if he had been anticipating this next logical step. "Do you have any idea where you might want to go?" he asked, his voice calm and surprisingly steady. "I was thinking maybe somewhere in Fremont," I replied, mentioning a neighborhood I had always admired for its quirky charm and artistic vibe. Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. He was silent for a long moment, the weight of our impending separation hanging in the air between us. Then he said, his voice tinged with a profound sadness, "Amelia, I'm not angry. Hurt, yes. Incredibly sad, definitely. But I understand. And maybe this is the right path for both of us." Tears welled up in my eyes once more, the raw emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "I never wanted to cause you this pain, Daniel," I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears. He offered a small, sad smile. "You didn't break my heart, Amelia," he said softly. "I gave it to you freely, hoping you would cherish it. Even though things didn't turn out the way I had hoped, I don't regret loving you." His words, so kind and forgiving, pierced me to the core, amplifying the guilt and sadness I already felt. The following week was a blur of packing and logistical arrangements, I didn't have much to move, mostly clothes, books, and a few personal belongings. The house, once filled with the comfortable familiarity of our shared life, now felt heavy with the ghosts of unspoken words and unfulfilled promises. I looked around at the small details, the framed photographs on the mantelpiece, the half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table, the cozy armchair in the corner where Daniel would often read, each object a poignant reminder of the life we were dismantling. Daniel helped me load my boxes into the back of Chloe's car, his presence a quiet support, his actions devoid of bitterness or resentment. "If you ever need anything at all, Amelia," he said, his voice sincere, "please don't hesitate to call me. Seriously." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Thank you for everything, Daniel," I finally managed to say, my voice choked with emotion. "You were always so incredibly kind to me." He looked at me one last time, a mixture of sadness and a quiet acceptance in his eyes, and said simply, "Take care of yourself, Amelia." Then I got into Chloe's car, and we drove away, leaving behind the house and the life I had shared with Daniel. I didn't look back. At Chloe's apartment, I found myself in the familiar comfort of her guest room, the change of scenery a welcome respite from the emotional intensity of the past few weeks. And I cried, not just for the loss of the marriage, but for the guilt I carried, for the sadness in Daniel's eyes, and for the uncertain future that lay ahead. But amidst the tears, a small seed of hope began to sprout, the fragile promise of a new beginning. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had made a decision that was truly for myself, a difficult and painful choice, but one that felt undeniably authentic. I had finally spoken my truth, taken a significant step forward, however unsteady, towards a future where I could perhaps finally find genuine happiness. The days that followed were filled with a quiet sense of transition. I stayed at Chloe's for a few weeks, finding comfort in her unwavering support and easy companionship. We spent evenings cooking together, sharing stories, and watching movies, her presence a steady anchor in the midst of my emotional storm. She never pressured me to talk, but she was always there with a listening ear and a comforting hug whenever the weight of my emotions threatened to overwhelm me. I started exploring the different neighborhoods of Seattle, searching for a place that felt like my own. I wandered through the vibrant streets of Fremont, the charming avenues of Queen Anne, and the bustling waterfront of Ballard, trying to envision my new life taking shape in one of these unique communities. I eventually found a small, sun-drenched studio apartment in the heart of Ballard, above a quirky little bookstore with a cozy coffee shop next door. It wasn't spacious or luxurious, but it had a certain charm, a feeling of being a blank canvas where I could finally create a space that truly reflected who I was. I painted the walls a soft, calming shade of blue, filled the windowsills with potted plants, and hung artwork by local artists, slowly transforming the small space into a haven of my own. Every morning, I would walk downstairs to the coffee shop, order a latte, and sit by the window, watching the neighborhood slowly come to life. There were moments of loneliness, pangs of sadness for what might have been, but they were increasingly interspersed with a sense of quiet contentment and a growing excitement for the future. I still thought about Daniel occasionally, wondering how he was doing, hoping that he was finding his own path towards healing and happiness. He deserved all the good things life had to offer, and I genuinely hoped he would find someone who could love him fully and completely. One rainy afternoon, while unpacking a box of old photographs, I came across the silver locket Daniel had given me. I held it in my hand for a long time, the delicate forget-me-not a poignant reminder of his kindness and my own complicated emotions. Finally, I placed it in a small velvet pouch and wrote a short note. "Thank you for everything, Daniel. I will always cherish your kindness." I left the pouch on his doorstep one evening, a silent gesture of gratitude and closure. As the seasons continued to turn, painting Seattle in hues of vibrant green, warm gold, and crisp autumn red, I too began to change. The weight on my heart gradually lifted, replaced by a growing sense of self-acceptance and a quiet confidence in my own resilience. I began to smile more freely, to laugh with genuine joy. I joined a book club at the local bookstore, connecting with fellow literature lovers who shared my passion for stories and ideas. I started exploring new hobbies, taking pottery classes at a nearby studio, and discovering a newfound appreciation for the tactile nature of clay. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again, the person I had been before the weight of a loveless marriage had begun to define me. One quiet evening, as I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman with eyes that held a newfound sparkle, a woman who had navigated a difficult journey and emerged stronger on the other side. A soft, genuine smile touched my lips. I whispered to my reflection, "It wasn't the path I initially envisioned, but it's my story now. I am still learning, still growing, still discovering who I am meant to be. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of hope and a quiet excitement for what lies ahead. And I know one thing with absolute certainty: I will never again compromise the truth of my own heart." If there is anyone reading this who has ever felt trapped in a similar situation, please know that you are not alone. It takes immense courage to face the truth and make difficult choices, but your own happiness and well-being are worth fighting for. Be honest with yourself and be brave enough to listen to the whispers of your own heart. It knows the way, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. It's not a fairy tale, and it doesn't have a neat, tidy ending, but it's real, and it's mine. And sometimes, that's the most beautiful story of all. If this story touched your heart, please consider leaving a like and a comment. Knowing that my words resonated with someone means the world to me. Share it if you think it might help someone else feel less alone, and subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories like mine. More are coming soon.